Now what we do for supply, the same thing we did for demand. We'll start out with the terminology that runs parallel to the terminology for demand. Supply is the seller's side, right? We've thought about the buyers and their demand. Supply refers to a relationship between the price of a good and the quantity supplied of that good or service. The quantity supplied is the amount that sellers are willing and able to offer for sale at a particular price. And the market supply is the sum of all the individual sellers' supply in the market for a good. So we think about an individual supply curve. If we look at the graph here, point A shows the relationship between price and quantity supplied when the price is $20. So the price is $20. The quantity supplied by this particular firm is 50,000 units. As the price decreases to $15, the firm responds by offering fewer units for sale. So the law of supply says that sellers will offer more units for sale at higher prices and fewer units for sale at lower prices, a positive relationship between the price and the quantity supplied. So the supply curve slopes upward from the left to the right. Remember, the demand curve sloped downward from the left to the right. If the price of DVDs changes, we're looking at the left panel here. If the price of DVDs were $10, then the quantity supplied by this in this entire market would be 30 million. If the price rises to $15, the sellers in this market respond by offering $40 million or 40 million units for sale. An increase in $5 results in an increase in quantity supplied of 10 million units. We'll look at the non-price determinants, the thing that influence the level of supply. Notice here that the shift in the supply curve from S1 to S2 is illustrating an increase in supply. And we'll look at the things that influence the level of supply and discuss whether they'll increase or decrease supply. The first thing on our list of non-price determinants that affect the level of supply, or that shift the supply curve, is the number of sellers. The number of sellers, much like the number of buyers, is pretty straightforward, that if there are more sellers in a market, holding everything else constant, there will be a greater level of supply. The second is production technology. This too is pretty straightforward, that if there is a technological breakthrough in the production processes, it will result in an increase in supply of the good. Resource prices, so the prices of inputs that are used in the production process. And by the way, this also would include the price of labor or wages of the workers that work in the production process. If we think back to gasoline, we refer to the idea that the price of crude oil is often reported. Crude oil is an input in the refinery process that results in the production of gasoline. Notice there's a negative sign here, so that if the price of crude oil were to rise, we would expect that the supply of gasoline would fall. The supply curve shifts to the left. A decrease in the price of oil would be associated with an increase in the supply of oil, holding everything else constant. When we're thinking about demand, we talked about the expectations of buyers. When we think about supply, we think about the expectations of sellers. What do they think is going to happen to the price, and how does that influence their behavior? If they think the price is going to be higher today, they may try to hold on to their goods and sell them later on at the higher price. That results in a negative relationship between their expectation of future prices and their current level of supply. Prices of other goods that the firm could produce. Think about a farmer who has land that is suitable for the production of both corn and soybeans. If the price of corn rises, what do we expect to happen to that farmer's supply of soybeans? If the price of corn rises, holding everything else constant, we can expect that the farmer will shift his land to the production of corn, thereby decreasing his production of soybeans. So an increase in the price of corn would cause a decrease in the supply of soybeans. And finally, taxes and subsidies. A tax on the production or sale of a good is going to cause a decrease in supply. Subsidies, however, would cause an increase in the supply of the good, holding everything else constant. So we see the upward sloping supply curve starting at S1, and we see that if something causes the supply curve, something causes supply to increase, then that's illustrated graphically with a rightward shift of the supply curve from something like S1 to something like S2. If something causes a decrease in supply, that's illustrated by a leftward shift of the supply curve from something like S1 to something like S3. There are some good illustrations of the non-price determinants and their effect on the position of the supply curve on page 63 in your textbook. Finally, we want to think about how the market works when we consider the actions and decisions of buyers and sellers together. So let's imagine that that there is a market for tennis shoes like this one from your book, where the sellers set their price at $90. Remember, the sellers don't know exactly what the position of the demand curve is going to be, but they know pretty well the position of their own supply curve. They know how many they're willing to sell. So if the seller sets his price at $90, the quantity supplied associated with $90 is 70 units. These are in thousands, 70,000 units. So at a price of $90, the sellers will bring 70,000 units to market. However, the quantity demanded at $90 is only 30,000 units. So the quantity demanded is 30,000 and the quantity supplied is 70,000. That means at a price of $90, there will be a quantity surplus of 40,000 units. There will be 40,000 units left over at that price of $90. Now that quantity surplus signals to the seller that he has set his price too high. So how does he respond? He responds by lowering his price. There will be a quantity surplus as long as the market price exceeds $60. And so that quantity surplus will continue to signal that the price is too high until the price gets down to $60, where the quantity demanded is exactly equal to the quantity supplied at 50,000 units per year. Notice alternatively that if the price starts out too low, a price below $60, a price like $30, the quantity supplied is 20,000. However, the quantity demanded is 80,000, which means there will be a quantity shortage of 80,000 minus 20,000, or 60,000 units. Think about sellers who mark their goods at a price of $30. They sell out very fast, and then there are people who still want to buy the good. They bid the price upward. They continue to bid the price upward until the price were to reach $60, where the quantity supplied equals the quantity demanded. This is what economists refer to as equilibrium. In an equilibrium, there's no tendency for the price or quantity exchanged to change until something happens. That something is a change in those non-price determinants that would cause a shift in either the supply or the demand curve, therefore altering the equilibrium price of the good. So looking forward to Chapter 4, we'll look at how those changes in supply or demand, or those shifts in the supply curve or shifts in the demand curve, can result in a change in the market price of a good. Go ahead and do your homework quiz for Chapter 3 And then we'll proceed to chapter 4 for the final chapter in section 1.